Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books so you can find your next read. Let's get started. Today we're doing a deep dive into Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder to help you decide if it deserves a spot on your bookshelf.
Ooh, that title kind of grabs you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely sounds like there's going to be some twists and turns.
Yeah, it really does. So let's meet Lenny. She's a 37-year-old fifth-grade teacher who is, well, she really thrives on routine. Color-coded calendars, meticulously organized bookshelves, same meal plan week after week. She's all about contentment over fleeting happiness. Does any of that resonate with you at all?
Well, what I find fascinating about Lenny's, her obsession with order, it kind of makes you think there's this deeper need for control there. And given, well, what we learn later about her past, her traumatic past, it makes you wonder if those rigid routines, if they're like a way of coping with all the chaos she's experienced.
That's a really good point. It's like she's built this perfectly structured world to just keep all those messy emotions at bay. And then, bam, a letter from the parole board shows up and throws a wrench into her carefully crafted life.
And you know what? Her first reaction is to just ignore it. I mean, wouldn't you think she'd want to know, like, who's up for parole, how it connects to her past? But nope, she tucks it away. Really makes you wonder what she's so afraid of uncovering.
Totally. And as if a mysterious letter from the parole board wasn't enough, we also find out that Lenny has a really hard time connecting with people. Her foster mom actually gives her an ultimatum. Make friends or see a therapist.
Wow, can you imagine? Make friends or see a therapist.
Hmm.
It really shows how much Lenny isolates herself and how tough it is for her to let people in.
For sure. But then this is where we start to see a little bit of Lenny's quirky side. Lenny has a collection, get this, 36 copies of The Hobbit. Not just any copies, though. We're typing meticulously organized copies, sometimes by publication date, sometimes by height, and even by color. I mean, talk about a unique coping mechanism, huh?
Well, it's both endearing and a bit, I don't know, unsettling. It speaks to that need for control, but also her love for this particular story. Makes me wonder if she finds comfort and escape in those familiar worlds.
I wonder, do you have any go-to books or movies, that you return to when you need a sense of comfort or escape?
You know what? I do, yeah. I find myself going back to those stories that really resonated with me, at different points in my life. It's like reconnecting with old friends. But, back to Lenny. And her carefully constructed world, it starts to crumble when she ventures out to a trivia night and has this disastrous encounter with a colleague. Spilled wine, awkward apologies, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's almost painful to read because you can feel how anxious she is, like right through the pages. But in a twist of fate, this really awkward encounter leads to a potential love interest, Ned, from McKnight's General Store. And what brings them together? Their shared love for Buffy the Vampire Slayer trivia.
I love that. It shows that beneath her, rigid exterior, Lenny has a playful side. And that connection, through pop culture kind of hints at a deeper compatibility.
Exactly.
Huh.
And this is where we start to see some cracks in Lenny's carefully constructed facade. She witnesses animal abuse and, like a completely impulsive act, she steals the dog. It's so out of character. What do you make of that sudden shift?
Oh, it's a huge moment in the story because it reveals this side of Lenny we haven't seen before, like this fierce protectiveness and a willingness to break the rules, for something she believed in. It's almost like a tiny act of rebellion against this life she's built for herself. But of course, hiding a stolen dog, it's not exactly easy. And Lenny's, all her attempts to keep this a secret, it just adds another layer of complexity to her, her already pretty complicated life.
Yeah, and then there's this whole imaginary housemate thing. She invents a roommate, Monica, which, let's face it, that's a little bizarre. And she's always relying on, pop culture references to navigate, like, any social situation. It's funny at times, but it makes you question, how reliable is she as a narrator?
Well, I think that's one of the things that makes this book so captivating, right? You're always kind of questioning how much of what Lenny's telling us, is it actually true? Is Monica real? Is she exaggerating certain events? It keeps you guessing, and it adds this layer of psychological suspense to the story.
It really does. And just when you think you're starting to understand Lenny, her world gets, like, completely rocked by the reappearance of Fergus, her abusive stepfather. And suddenly, all of a sudden, her carefully curated life, it feels like this fragile defense against all the trauma of her past.
Yeah, his return brings this flood of just painful memories. And it forces Lenny to confront, all the demons she's been trying so hard to suppress. It's clear that Fergus's abuse had a deep impact on her, shaping her personality, her choices.
Absolutely. And it's not just, Fergus's reappearance that throws Lenny's life into turmoil.
Yeah.
We're also introduced to Maureen, her kind of enigmatic neighbor, who seems to know more about Lenny's past than she lets on.
Maureen. She's such an interesting character. Is she a friend? A confidant or something more? I don't know. But her presence adds this element of mystery, and it makes you wonder, I don't know, are there some supernatural forces at play here?
I love that the author, keeps us guessing about her true nature. But even with Maureen's support, the truth about Lenny's past, it comes out. And it's heartbreaking. We learn about her brother's death, her mother's murder, and Fergus's role in it all.
It's devastating. It changes everything we thought we knew about Lenny. Her actions, like in the present, they're suddenly tied to all this past trauma, and we're left to, wow, grapple with the moral complexities of her choices.
Yeah, it's like the author just peeled back all these layers of Lenny's carefully constructed world and revealed, all the raw pain and vulnerability beneath.
And it's in this, well, this space of vulnerability that Lenny's forced to make a choice, you know? Will she give in to the darkness of her past or find a way to heal and move forward?
It's such a powerful question, and it drives the rest of the story.
Speaking of powerful questions, you know the book's central mystery, it all revolves around the title, right? Does Lenny actually get away with murder?
Ooh, that's a great place to pause for now.
It is. We've laid the groundwork, and now it's time to, well, to really delve into the heart of this story. So, where were we? Oh yeah, the big question, does Lenny get away with murder?
Ah.
And the author, well, they really keep us in suspense the whole time, revealing the truth about Fergus's death bit by bit.
Yeah, it's like putting a puzzle together, but the pieces are scattered all over. In Lenny's memories, her present-day experiences, and just when you think, okay, I'm getting it, a new piece pops up and changes everything.
Right. The author blends past and present, like weaving a tapestry of trauma, guilt, and ultimately this search for justice.
Speaking of the past, I think we should go a little deeper into Lenny's childhood. We know that Fergus was abusive, but what about her mother? What about her brother Malcolm? We only get these little glimpses, through Lenny's fragmented memories.
Well, and that's the genius of the author's storytelling, right? We're forced to piece together Lenny's past, right alongside her. Experiencing her trauma and confusion as she's trying to make sense of it all. We learn about her mother's helplessness, with Fergus's abuse, and the deep bond that she shared with Malcolm, her brother.
Yeah, and their shared love for the Hobbit. I mean, that's particularly poignant. It represents this world of escape for them, a place where they can find, I don't know, solace, adventure, amidst all the darkness.
And it ties back to Lenny's collection of 36 couples, right? It's like she's holding on to that childhood connection, trying to, I don't know, preserve a part of her brother, that innocence they shared.
Yeah, it's both heartbreaking and, I don't know, deeply symbolic. Like the books, they become this physical manifestation of her grief, her longing for a time before the trauma.
But as the story goes on, you start to see Lenny breaking free from her past. Her relationships with Ned and Kira, however tentative, they offer these glimpses of a future where she can find connection, joy.
Ned especially. He plays a pivotal role in Lenny's transformation. He challenges her to step outside her comfort zone, to be vulnerable, to believe that she deserves, I don't know, love and happiness.
Yeah, their scenes together, they're so heartwarming. They're both a little quirky, a little awkward, but they find comfort in each other, acceptance. It's really beautiful, this testament to the healing power of genuine connection.
And then there's Kira, Lenny's well-meaning colleague. She represents this world of, I don't know, normalcy that Lenny wants to be a part of. But her anxiety, her fear of judgment, it just keeps pushing Kira away.
I was rooting for Kira. She's so patient, so persistent, trying to befriend Lenny, even when Lenny's defenses are like sky high.
And what's interesting? Lenny starts, her invention of Monica, it becomes more frequent when Kira's around. Like she needs this imaginary buffer to protect herself from, I don't know, from the pain of real connection.
Totally. Monica represents Lenny's fear of intimacy, this belief that she's not worthy of real friendship. But as the story goes on, we see those walls start to crumble as she begins to trust Kira.
It's a small shift, but it's powerful. It speaks to the transformative nature of human connection, right? How even the most guarded hearts can open up when they find a safe space to land.
And let's not forget about, Maureen. The enigmatic Maureen. She's like, I don't know, guardian angel, Appearing at these key moments to guide Lenny towards the truth, offer cryptic advice. But her motives, they're shrouded in mystery.
I love how the author, weaves Maureen's presence throughout the entire story. Is she, I don't know, supernatural? Is she a figment of Lenny's imagination?
Mm.
Or just a, wise woman who sees more than others do? It's a question that, I don't know, it just lingers.
And it's one of the many things that makes the story so captivating, right? You're constantly trying to figure out, well, what's Maureen's role? Just as Lenny's trying to make sense of her own past. Speaking of deciphering, what about that, the recurring motif of the Shadow Girl?
Oh yeah, the Shadow Girl. That's a haunting image. It pops up throughout the book, both in Lenny's childhood memories and in the present. What do you make of it?
Well, it's open to interpretation, of course, but to me, the Shadow Girl, she represents this part of Lenny that was, I don't know, silenced, traumatized by Fergus, a reminder of the innocence that was stolen, the voice that was stifled.
Wow, that's a pretty accurate assessment, like a physical manifestation of Lenny's inner turmoil. You know,
Yeah.
a ghost of her past that she just can't ignore.
And she appears more often, as Lenny gets closer to the truth about Fergus, almost like she's urging Lenny to confront her past, to reclaim her voice.
Yeah, it adds this layer of psychological depth.
Mm.
It makes you question what's real, what's in Lenny's mind,
Yeah.
and it all leads up to that final confrontation with Fergus.
Oh, the tension in those final chapters. You can feel it. We see Lenny wrestling with her desire for revenge, this need to protect herself, and the moral implications of taking a life.
The author doesn't shy away from these tough questions.
Yeah.
It forces us to confront those gray areas of morality. Where's the line between justice and vengeance?
Yeah.
And we're left grappling with the ambiguity of Lenny's choices.
Right. Did she push Fergus down the stairs? Did he trip and fall? The author gives us clues, but ultimately you decide what you believe happened.
It's a really, I don't know, smart way to tell the story.
Yeah.
It makes people debate and really examine their own beliefs
Yeah.
about justice and accountability.
And even if we can't say for sure if Lenny, gets away with murder, in the legal sense, there is a sense of, I don't know, poetic justice in how everything unfolds. Fergus is finally exposed as, the monster that he is. And Lenny, well, she finds a path to healing and self-acceptance.
It's a reminder that sometimes, the biggest victory is breaking free from your past and choosing to live a life defined by hope and resilience.
Exactly. And that brings us to the ending. Lenny finds solace in her new connections, with Ned and Kira. And she finally seems, ready to embrace a future free from, I don't know, the shadows of her past.
It's bittersweet. Filled with hope, but also you can feel the weight of everything Lenny's been through.
It is, but it stays with you. It makes you think about the strength of the human spirit and the power of forgiveness of yourself and others.
What a beautiful way to sum it up. But before we wrap up our deep dive into Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the title.
Oh yeah, the big question, right? Does she actually get away with murder?
The author leaves it, open-ended. But what do you think? Does that ambiguity take away from the story, or does it make it better?
For me, it makes it better, definitely. The ambiguity adds this layer of, complexity that stays with you long after you finish the book. It forces us to look at our own biases and wrestle with the nuances of justice and morality. It's not about finding easy answers. It's about having a thoughtful dialogue,
Yeah.
about the complexities of being human.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. And that's what makes this book so compelling. It's not just a thrilling mystery or a sad story about trauma. It's a story that challenges us to think critically, to empathize deeply, and to question our own assumptions about right and wrong.
It's a story that just stays with you, prompting you to think and talk about it long after you finish the last page.
I think we've covered a lot today exploring the intricacies of Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder. But before we go, I'd love to hear your final thoughts on the book. What message do you think the author is trying to convey?
Well, ultimately, I think this book it's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It's about finding hope and healing even when things are really tough, about the power of connection, to mend those broken hearts, and about the courage to face your past and choose a different future.
Wow, that's beautifully said. That's a perfect note to end on. So, after spending all this time with Lenny Marks, experiencing her world, her struggles, her triumphs, what do you think? Is this a book you'd recommend?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of those stories that, I don't know, it just sticks with you, a real page turner. And it goes deep,
Yeah.
into human resilience, the power of connection.
And it's so much more than, just a mystery. It
Right.
explores all these complex themes like trauma and justice and even forgiveness, all while, keeping you on the edge of your seat.
Exactly, exactly. What I found really fascinating was how the author portrayed Lenny's, well, her coping mechanisms, right? All that meticulous organization, the imaginary housemate, the way she uses pop culture. I mean, those aren't just quirks. They're like these little windows into how her past trauma is affecting her?
Yeah, it makes you think about how we all try to create order and meaning when, the world feels chaotic. Maybe we don't all have 36 copies of The Hobbit, but, we all have our ways of dealing with life's challenges.
For sure, for sure. And I think that's one reason this book resonates so much. It reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles, that even when things are really, really dark, there's always hope for healing and growth.
And sometimes, that healing comes from the most unexpected places,
Mm.
like Lenny's connections with Ned, with Kira, even Maureen. It shows just how powerful human connection can be.
Right. Each of them gave her something different, a piece of the puzzle she needed. Ned's love and acceptance, well, Kira just wouldn't give up on her. And then Maureen's, well, her guidance, I guess you could call it. I don't know, they all played a part in Lenny's transformation.
Yeah, it really shows the importance of, community, of having people who, I don't know, who see us, who support us, who challenge us to be better.
And in the end, I think that's the big takeaway from Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder. It's about finding your voice, about, reclaiming your power, and about just the incredible strength of the human spirit.
Beautifully said. So to wrap things up, would you say this book is, for everyone?
Well, if you like character-driven stories,
Yeah.
stories that make you think, if you like a little bit of mystery and suspense, and if you're looking for a book that makes you think even after you finished it, then yeah, Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder. I'd say it's definitely worth a read.
I totally agree. Well, there you have it. Another deep dive complete. We hope you found this exploration of Lenny Marks Gets Away with Murder helpful.
And we hope it made you, curious, maybe even inspired you to pick up a copy yourself.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on our next episode for more bookish adventures. And hey, if you enjoyed the ride, hit that like button. Don't forget to share the knowledge and subscribe.